Hello. Let me give you a few dates. You may well disagree with them, and I kind of hope that you do in some way, but here they are. They're the various eras of the history of music. So we have the medieval period from, say, 800 to 1400. We've got the Renaissance period from 1400 to 1600, the Baroque period from 1600 to 1750, the classical period from 1750 to 1820, the romantic period from 1820 to 1910, and the modern period from 1910 to now. Now, I accept that these dates are somewhat arbitrary and they can even be unhelpful, which really brings me to the point of this programme, which is to show that some composers, some very fine composers, don't get the credit they deserve simply because their music belongs neither to one period nor another. They fall between two stools. And theirs is sometimes seen pejoratively as a kind of hybrid music. In some cases, these composers were genuine, if at the time misunderstood, pace setters, and they were laying a path for the era that was to come. In other cases, they were simply part of the gradual evolution of music, and because their work wasn't particularly romantic or classical or whatever, they'd been disparaged as being neither fish nor fowl. That, of course, is utterly wrong, and I want to show that some of their work deserved to be placed among that of the finest composers of whatever era. So let's start with what came between the Baroque and the classical periods. You'll note that I'm missing out the medieval era or the Renaissance as well. I can't write the complete history of music in this programme. Anyway, Baroque music. What was Baroque music? Well, I'm not even going to attempt to describe it. I'm not a musician or a musicologist. I'm just someone who likes music. But I will say that Baroque saw the creation of writing music in a particular key. It's commonly known for complex pieces and intricate harmonies. The idea of a modern orchestra was born in this period, along with opera and the concerto and the sonata and the cantata and so forth. Composers turned to writing instrumental works for various instrumental ensembles. The instruments themselves advanced drastically. Many new instruments were developed, such as the oboe and the bassoon and the cello and so forth. Anyway, let's hear some music. A short piece of Baroque music just to start things off. I originally chose something by Johann Sebastian Bach, but I decided against it for reasons which I'll maybe explain later. And I picked this piece to come. This music will be familiar to you if you ever watched the Eurovision Song Contest, or if you can recall the TV game show Je suis Frontier. It's the very popular prelude to a Te Deum by the French composer Marc-Antoine Charpentier, and it was written at the end of the 17th century, although it wasn't discovered until 1954 apparently. So here we go. The classical period expanded upon the Baroque period and it added an influential new form, the sonata. it also saw the development, the further development of the concerto and the symphony and the sonata and the trio and the quartet and so forth. It's a period that's kind of known for its compulsion for structural clarity, I think you could say, in music. Orchestras increased in size and in range and in power, and instrumentation had a lighter, more evident texture than Baroque music, making it a bit less complicated. But between the heyday of the Baroque era and the birth of the classical period came some music that we now call transitional. All the music in this video, but not in this programme, was written by the great Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, CPE as he's known. And he suffers hugely because of two facts. One, he had an enviable and thankless task of following in the footsteps of his great father, the Johann Sebastian Bach, and two, his music was, well, it most definitely falls between two stools. Is it Baroque, as his father's was? Not really. Is it classical then, like say Mozart's? Well, again, not really. But does that mean it's some sort of wishy-washy halfway house between the two? Well, not at all. CPE Bach, not Johann Sebastian, was the most famous composer of the late 18th century. Mozart described him as the father, and we, meaning Mozart and Haydn and all the rest, are his children. People don't say that about CPE Bach anymore, but I wonder why not. Time for some music. Let's hear the finale of CPE Bach's Symphony in B minor, which was written in 1773. And right from the very start of this movement, Bach shouts, really at the top of his orchestral voice, that he's got something new to say, that the Baroque era was a thing of the past. That this music I think, is vital and thrilling, and certainly at the time it was written, it was shockingly unpredictable. You just don't know where it's going. One more thing I could say about CPE Bach's music is that things always seem to move at a pace, and I'm not talking about tempo here. I'm just thinking about, there seems to be something new around every corner, and all the corners seem to come round thick and fast. And this kind of dynamic drive in his music is a precursor to much of what was to follow in the classical and indeed the Romantic periods. So let's hear something from CPE Bach's Symphony in B minor. I like that. That was played by the Orchestra of the Age of Enlightenment, and I think it's a pity that, as far as CPE Bach is concerned, we aren't living in an age of enlightenment. We just don't give him due recognition. So let's hear a wee bit more of CPE Bach. This is the third movement of his E minor symphony, which was written in 1759, just several years really before the last piece that you heard. Music that seemed to leap and then pause and leap and pause, but I think it's typical of CPE Bach. It's always energetic. So the man we're talking about was the fifth child and the second surviving son of Johann Sebastian Bach, and he was born in 1714 and he died in 1788. He was given the middle name, or one of his middle names, Philip, in honour of his godfather, the great composer George Philip Telemann. And I suppose from the day of his birth he was steeped in music. He worked at a time when music was moving away from his father's Baroque style, but while his music was always likely to be influenced by his father's, he was a man who was determined to find his own way. CPE Bach's symphonies are all pretty much, well, they're all worth listening to, but next we're going to hear the finale of his keyboard concerto in D minor, written in 1748. Yeah, let's listen to that. Some confident music. It's assertive even. It's just so typical of C.P.E. Bach. He was hugely influential as a pedagogue, and his comprehensive essay on the true art of playing keyboard instruments is a document that was to be studied by Mozart and Haydn and Beethoven. And he wrote in it, "Since a musician cannot move others unless he himself is moved, he must of necessity feel all of the effects that he hopes to arouse in his listeners." It's no wonder that C.P.E. Bach had disciples in the later classical and romantic years. And Brahms, for example, held him in very high regard. And C.P.E. practiced what he preached. He wrote lots and lots of keyboard music, including this next piece, his Fantasia in C minor. It's been recorded using various keyboard instruments, but here is the very beginning of the Fantasia as it was composed for organ. The beginning of C.P.E. Bach's Fantasia and Fugue in C minor. Now I thought we would hear, well, what shall we hear? C.P.E. Bach's Flute Concerto in D minor. It's a work about which there's always been some controversy. It's his best known flute concerto, but some people say that a version for harpsichord and orchestra is the original, others that the flute version came first. I don't know which is true. But anyway, this is the very thrilling finale, and it wraps up this video. Let's see if I can find it first. think we probably need a rest after that. So in the second video I look at the transition between classical music and the Romantic eras. I wonder if you can guess whose music I will feature. Thank you.